Robbie Lawlor was a name mentioned in fear on the streets of Drogheda. His presence was like a dark cloud hanging over the town, a constant reminder of the violence that could erupt at any moment. A notorious gangster, he was known not just for my crimes, but for the sheer brutality with which he carried them out. People knew that crossing me meant inviting a world of pain. He was a ruthless enforcer and a hitman for the Boylan brothers after they all worked for Owen Maguire at one stage, but then would betray their boss and become known as the anti-Maguire faction, deeply embedded in the Irish underworld. His job was to ensure that debts were paid and that loyalty was maintained, often through violent means. Lawlor was no stranger to violence, his name synonymous with the brutal Drogheda feud. This feud was not just a series of isolated incidents, it was a full-blown war that engulfed the town. This bloody gang war, sparked by two sides separated and the fallout of Owen Maguire and his workers, they decided to bring the heath onto the Maguire Price gang. They plunged the town into chaos. The streets were battlegrounds and the residents lived in constant fear of the next outbreak of violence. Lawlor was a key player in this conflict. His influence was felt in every corner of the town, and his orders were carried out with ruthless efficiency. He was linked to numerous violent incidents, my brutality leaving a trail of fear and bloodshed. Lawlor, who was stabbed in jail and left with many stitches from Naily Boy Price when they met in jail, Naily Boy shook his hand but didn't forget what he did to his partner Owen. Each act of violence was a message, a warning to those who might think of challenging him. One incident in particular solidified my fearsome reputation, the brutal dismemberment of a teenager. This was not just a crime, it was a statement. This act of barbarity sent shockwaves through Ireland, etching my name in the annals of Irish crime. The media coverage was relentless, and his name became synonymous with terror. Robbie's ruthlessness and strategic mind made me a force to be reckoned with, both feared and respected within criminal circles. He was not just a brute, he was a tactician. His involvement in the Drogheda feud, however, would ultimately set in motion a chain of events that would lead to my own demise. The very chaos that he thrived on would become my undoing. The Drogheda feud is a series of allegedly connected crimes in Drogheda, Ireland. 5 people have been killed as a result of the feud. The feud began in 2017 when a drug trafficking-focused organized crime gang split into 2 divisions, with one faction led by Richie Carberry, along with 2 brothers aged in their 20s from the Moneymore estate on the north side of town, and the other headed by Irish travellers Owen Maguire and Cornelius Price. Lawlor was a marked man, living on borrowed time. His enemies were numerous and they were all eager to see him fall. The life he had built on violence and fear was unsustainable. His enemies were many and hungry for revenge. Shots rang out, shattering the quiet evening. The sudden eruption of gunfire sent shockwaves through the neighborhood, leaving residents in a state of panic and confusion. The attack was swift and brutal. A stark reminder of Owen Maguire was shot 6 times by a gunman on the 5th of July 2018 at his home in Cement Road, Drogheda. He was known to Gardaí, though his most serious conviction was for a fray near his home, for which he was sentenced to 6 months' imprisonment. His associates were the main targets of an operation by the Criminal Assets Bureau in April 2018. He is a former associate of convicted criminal Cornelius Price. One of the bullets that hit him was lodged in his spine. Maguire was left paralysed by the shooting, but still remain in control of the Drogheda drug trade. Owen, who is a multimillionaire who has bragged about being true 5 wars and claims to love trouble. In November 2022, Robbie Lawlor, who was the brother-in-law of Richie Carberry, was named in court documents submitted by the Criminal Assets Bureau as the gunman who attempted to assassinate Maguire. Local councillor Kenneth Flood said, in July, after the shooting, Gardaí openly said they didn't have the resources to police the division. Then you have the cops saying they don't have enough people to do the job. The criminals are looking at this and they're thinking it's Christmas. He called for more resources for Gardaí and a more intelligent use of resources. TD Fergus O'Dowd echoed the call for more resources and said that Drogheda Gardaí must be afforded all necessary resources to tackle recent crime. Since the shooting of Owen Maguire, the 2 gangs have exchanged a series of tit-for-tat attacks. Many shootings and over 100 petrol bombs and unburned premises. Louth Gardaí had their leave restricted by November 2018 in order to control the violence. the ever-present danger lurking in the shadows. Owen, who controls Drogheda and most of the northwest as far as Belfast, Balbriggan and North Dublin, racked in his cash since the early 2000s, when he became allies with once feared Naily Boy Price, who died recently in hospital in Wales. They would murder Benny Whithouse. As he dropped his kid off to school, this would be the start of dominance, as he has forged links with Ireland's Mr. Big. I was caught off guard, seriously wounded, but miraculously survived. The bullets had torn through my body, leaving me in excruciating pain and fighting for my life. The quick response of emergency services was crucial in those critical moments, as they worked tirelessly to stabilize me and rush me to the hospital. The attack was a declaration of war. It was a bold and audacious move, signaling a new phase in the ongoing feud. The message was clear: no one was safe, and the battle for control would be fought with ruthless determination. It marked a turning point in the Drogheda feud, escalating the conflict to new heights. The once simmering tensions had now erupted into full-blown warfare, with both sides preparing for an all-out battle. The community, caught in the crossfire, could only watch in horror as their streets became a war zone. The Maguire faction, fueled by rage and a thirst for vengeance, vowed retaliation. Plans were quickly set in motion, with members arming themselves and strategizing their next move. The desire for retribution was palpable, driving the faction to take drastic measures. Their connection to the Dundons, who were paid to protect Robbie Lawlor while he was in prison, would backfire, especially after a month after Robbie Lawlor's death. Dundon and Naily Boy Price would be arrested after a plot to kidnap two Asian gangsters and hold them for a ransom of 300,000. Dundon, who changed his name to Darren McLean, is now serving 15 years over the kidnapping and possession of a firearm. He has been locked up since 2020, which means he could be back on the streets in another 3 years. The streets of Drogheda, once relatively peaceful, were now a battleground. The constant threat of violence loomed over the city, with residents living in a state of perpetual fear. The police, overwhelmed and outnumbered, struggled to maintain order in the face of escalating chaos. Lawlor, a key suspect in the attack on me, found himself a prime target. His involvement in the assassination attempt had not gone unnoticed, and he quickly became a marked man. The authorities, determined to bring those responsible to justice, intensified their efforts to track him down. The attempted hit had backfired, pushing the rival gangs further apart and igniting a cycle of violence that would claim many lives, including Lawlor's own. The streets ran red with blood as the feud spiraled out of control, leaving a trail of devastation in its wake. The attack on Maguire was not just about settling scores. It was a calculated move, designed to send a message to all who dared to challenge the status quo. The power struggle within the criminal underworld had reached a critical juncture, with each faction vying for dominance of the Drogheda drug trade.
The Maguires, based in Drogheda, built their empire on drug trafficking and extortion. They were known for their cunning and resourcefulness, and their influence extended far beyond Drogheda. It was believed that they had the help of the Dundons, Dundon, Quincy Bramble, and alleged shooter Levi Dundon, the son of John Dundon, who would lure Robbie Lawlor to Ardoyne, Belfast, where he would be executed in broad daylight in a strange murder, with 2 people on remand in Northern Ireland fighting the case who claimed to have nothing to do with it. A prosecutor in court brought up the fact that the Dundons were involved in the murder, especially when Desi Dundon's wife-to-be would be caught with 50,000 at a Portloi's petrol station. Gardaí had intel, as the crackdown of encrypted chat was being accessed by the Gardaí special unit. Desi Dundon's girlfriend has pleaded guilty to money laundering with a bounty so large on Robbie Lawlor's head after the dismembering of Keen Mulready Woods when Ewan heard the news. An hour later, Paul Crosby, he narrowly escaped death on his life when he signed on in Drogheda Garda Station. Him and his girlfriend Sonia would be in the taxi at the time, but an innocent taxi driver was hit instead. Since then, the Boylan brothers fled Ireland, hiding out in Mexico, Turkey, and even Thailand, and Paul Crosby pleaded guilty to the cover-up of Keen's murder, blaming Robbie Lawlor on the gruesome attack. Ewan seems to be the only gang member still in Drogheda. The Boylan brothers still seem to transport drugs into Drogheda, but are in fear of return, not only from the Maguire faction, but also being charged with Keen Mulready Woods murder. Keen, who is a godson of Owen and with Naily Boy now gone, Maguire still seems to feel untouchable, even arguing with bare-knuckle boxer Arthur McGinley, who claims Owen had his father's grave broke up with a message to you. King Arthur, it seems like Arthur is out of his depth in this one. Owen can't seem to stay out of trouble with WhatsApp videos claiming he is the boss of the 32 counties. But all this feud and Owen's many murders, despite being in a wheelchair, he still has total control of Drogheda. And beyond the drug trade, a mastermind who shows no fear, with many of his enemies murdered, locked up or running from him. He is still considered as the boss, and a very psychotic man who would go beyond levels to torment and get the upper hand of his enemies. As time goes on, we will see if Patrick Tier, 48, from Woodley Terrace in Derry, and Adrian Holland, 40, have denied his murder. Both Mr. Holland and Mr. Tier also plead not guilty to charges of conspiracy to murder and a firearms offence. They were accused of possessing a 9mm self-loading pistol with intent. Appearing before Mr. Justice O'Hara at Belfast Crown Court, the two men were told that their trial is expected to last up to 8 weeks. The judge added that he anticipated the hearing will be held in the autumn.